It was recently Lawrence Taylor's 55th birthday. Considering how he lived his life, this is a great achievement. The young man from a small town in Virginia knew something about making 10 Pro Bowls and winning 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, as well as the 1986 NFL MVP. He revolutionized the linebacker's position and had since been named the 3rd best player ever by the NFL Network. But maybe that's not why you heard about it. At least that's not the only reason. LT, from a clean college kid at the University of North Carolina, he went to the league's usual bad boy. He made constant use of his lightning speed on the football field as a constant alternative to speed up his nose. He has since participated in crack, prostitution, and even WrestleMania XI. When Taylor joined the NFL in 1981, he changed his jersey number to 56 in honor of Dallas Cowboy linebacker Baker Thomas Hollywood Henderson. He survived Henderson's self-inflicted drug overdose and easily overcame it. He has even occasionally managed to relate himself to a cameo in police reports after retirement. That is the standard of linebacking as well as provocative pro-athlete behavior. But when you reach 55, it's time to reflect. Here's a look back at the original LT's craziest moments. Welcome to Endless Sports. Subscribe now so you never miss out on any of the greatest facts about sports and the latest trending sports news. Let's get into the video. He doesn't remember the day he was drafted because he drank 41 beers. It's hard to imagine that the 2nd overall pick would have celebrated his future by slimming 41 Coors Lights. Think about it. It's hard to imagine how he didn't die. But Taylor started his NFL career with a bang and a tradition we'll never see again as the expected top picks fly to New York City, so strangely on the table until their names are called. Sit down. The New York Giants were happy that the Saints won the 1st overall pick, Taylor. They finished drafting, leaving George Rogers behind, because as their head coach Ray Perkins put it, he was the cleanest player in the draft. By that I mean there was no rap on him. The Giants took out a $2 million life insurance policy on Taylor when he was a rookie. It didn't take long for Taylor's recklessness to bring him fame within the organization. On the field, he was known to play like an Iron Man who never said he would get hurt. The same carelessness that was so much fun to watch grew into life off the field. During his treacherous campaign, he was speeding and almost died in a car accident. As a result, the Giants devised a $2 million policy to take advantage of possible deaths, in which GM George Young told the team's trainer that he would be surprised if he lived beyond the age of 30. According to our calculations, he has been deceiving death for a quarter of a century and counting. Be proud of the game. His nose saved Colombia from economic depression. Okay, we kid. Sort of. File this one away for the SATs. What spinach was to Popeye, Coke was to Lawrence Taylor. If you want a comparable buzz, snort 10 Red Bulls up your nose. His coach may have regarded him as clean during his prep years in Chapel Hill, but it was less than a year before LT started funding Pablo Escobar's kids' college funds. Like many lifelong addictions, it all started at a party. By his 3rd season in the pros, he was smoking up to an ounce of crack a day. If you want a comparable buzz, smoke an ounce of crack per day. The drug usage escalated Taylor to the top of the NFL's miscreant pantheon and made his on-field presence even more impressive. The play that ended Joe Theismann's career. What do Willis McGahee, Kevin Ware, and Joe Theismann have in common? They all suffered injuries that hurt Johnny Knoxville. This will make you think about the next time you will be asked, touch or tackle. He ditched rehab to play golf. After the 1985 off-air where he had 13 sacks and made the Pro Bowl, LT checked at Houston's Methodist Hospital under a false name to begin rehabilitation and abrupt termination. Taylor walked out after a group therapy session because he thought other people there were crazy. It makes us curious to know the stories of other patients. After all, LT, he spent the season chewing glass, dancing on stripper poles, and at one point leaving 700 to armed drug dealers. We'd better talk about the level of Amanda Baines here. After leaving the hospital, LT, he spent the rest of the offseason playing golf with his agent across the country. He returned to lead the NFL in sacks in 1986, winning the MVP award. and defeating John Elway and the Broncos 39-20 in Super Bowl 21. He failed a drug test after using a teammate's urine. Rock bottom is when you need someone else's urine to avoid suspension for any reason. Taylor found a clever way to get his Coke and eat it too. Just use another boy's lemonade to keep you on the field. Get your money and pay the dealers. Everyone is happy in the pre-Whizzinator days. LT used the clean teammate's urine by making them urinate in an aspirin bottle he had kept around him. When the test came, he would put his colleague's urine in the cup. All was well until even one of the urine samples given to him was tainted with residual drugs, which raises the question of why somebody would give him it in the first place. The real kicker? The unnamed player who got LT his second drug violation strike, the first being in the 1987 preseason, passed his exam. He once arrived at a team meeting in handcuffs. At this point, you probably realized that Lawrence Taylor's career was basically the real-life version of ESPN's Playmakers. A never-ending juxtaposition of constant off-the-field shenanigans and instinctual made-for-TV concussion-inducing hits. Of course, by shenanigans, we mean paying for sex. After a night with some call girls, Taylor ended up going to a Bill Parcells-led team meeting in a pair of handcuffs too erotic for the NYPD. The reason? The prostitutes gave their profession a bad name by lacking the competence to bring the keys. He pinned Bam Bam Bigelow during the WrestleMania XI. He could not have scored more in the 90s than Taylor's only wrestling debut in a match against Bam Bam Bigelow during WrestleMania XI. The match was started by Salt and Peppa singing "What a Man," and the guest of the first match was none other than Jonathan Taylor Thomas, the unofficial Prince of the Decade. It all came down to the main event. The 3-month-long feud aims to continue to grow in popularity in the thriving WWF. The fight began a few weeks before when Bigelow attacked LT 95 after leaving the Royal Rumble. He offered up no apology and instead offered to settle the beef like old Southern gentlemen by facing off in the squared circle in front of 16,000 man-children. When the day finally came, Taylor's entourage included fellow NFLers Ken Norton Jr., Chris Spielman, and Reggie White. They were there to keep Ted DiBiase's million-dollar corporation, aka Bigelow's entourage, honest. When the match began, he had his back tested with a Boston Crab, a kick to the back of the head, a moonsault flip, and several headbutts before turning the tide and landing his massive forearm on Bigelow's face, just prior to pinning him, much to the embarrassment of the wrestling vet. On the way out, Bigelow was less than a gentleman and challenged Lawrence's trainer Diesel to a match then and there. Much to his chagrin, one of his allies, Tatanka, turned on him, allowing him to get pinned twice in under 10 minutes. After that, he got stomped by his own entourage and became friends with Diesel. And with that wrap-up, you now remember why the league was thriving. He beat up a drug dealer after a robbery attempt. Taylor admits he hit his nadir when he would cruise with his fancy Cadillac through rundown neighborhoods simply searching for his next high. One such neighborhood was The Hill in Spring Valley, New York. Taylor claims to have spotted 3 dealers, but their drug-selling procedure made him nervous. One got in the back of his car, one blocked his door, and the other called shotgun. The dude in the passenger seat eyed his Rolex, and after the drug transaction, he temporarily took it at gunpoint, in addition to a diamond pinky ring. He then handed the gun to his cohort outside the car to add years to their potential felony. Taylor, seeing his opportunity, gunned it, driving on the curb while the freaked-out attempted robber panicked. He threatened Taylor with the gun he no longer had and got his ass kicked by the former most feared player in the NFL. In an ending straight out of a Disney movie, Taylor got his watch back as well as the ring, threw him out of the car by the neck, and went home and smoked his crack. His home turned into a crack house after retirement. After the whole tainted urine incident, LT had to be on his best behavior and refrain from doing drugs, lest he risk a third strike and possible banishment from the NFL. In short, he had to follow his own advice. That means he had a 5-year hiatus from coke lasting from 1988 to 1993. When talking about his plans after retirement, he said cocaine was the only bright spot in his future. With no more drug tests, he was free to indulge. The day after retirement, he was smoking crack. Eventually, obviously, this development led to a full-on relapse. With no football intervals between the drug use and a pile of money to burn, he became a junkie. At some point, his house resembled Jesse Pinkman's from Breaking Bad, becoming a veritable crack den filled with hookers and other junkies and using sheets to cover the windows. It took a couple of arrests and a jail threat to turn his life around and refocus his energy into something less crack-related. Somehow, that made it worse. And that's all for today's video. We hope you enjoyed this upload. If you did, feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for even more great content just like this. Thanks for watching. See you soon in another one.